like, okay, what is this? You know, we were tired, to be frank. We were very, very tired of the process, the fight. She endured every treatment option available to her. That was such a hard roller coaster ride for those years. But when we met with Dr. Ho, we were a little skeptical. You know, we were like, okay, what do we do? Are we going to be in the hospital? Are we going to go into hospice? And I just want to say this is, I'll tell you a little bit more about the story, but this story is about Vanessa, but it's also a God story. God has always been there with us, for us, seeing it through. I'd love to, some of you know, we've talked about this with many of you, the stories of God putting the right people at the right place at the right time in our lives, carrying us, you know, to the right encouraging word. I remember one time we were at church, and we were just, you know, the whole cancer walk was new to us. It was a journey we've never experienced, and, you know, I was really, really just feeling it, and I think Elizabeth, where's Elizabeth? She's here somewhere. But I didn't know Elizabeth went through a cancer journey of her own. She came up to me and she says, Arnold, you know what? It's going to be okay. You'll be okay. And just a little comfort in that, at the right time, at the right place. Coming back to the palliative story, when she was, we had that meeting at the house. We were, as I said, skeptical, and we just didn't want to go through that anymore. In comes this doctor, and he was the most kindest, gentlest person we could ever have asked for. He asked all the right questions. He asked in such a way we were just overjoyed. And then he says, he came to the part and said, hey, Arnold, you know, is there any spiritual things that you guys want to talk about? Is there, you know, do you guys have any? I said, no. I said, we're good. I said, Vanessa's not afraid of dying. We're Christians. We know where we're going. And he says, oh, you're Christians? He says, I'm a Christian too. I said, wow. He goes, where did you go to church? I said, you know, we used to go to the People's Church in Toronto. And he goes, I used to go to the church in Toronto. People's Church in Toronto. I said, really? We got on this little thing about, you know, Spiritual Life Conference, Pastor Charles, and then he says, you know what, I live right around the corner from your house. I mean, it was the most comforting thing at that moment we could have experienced, just to have that kind of person, and God just puts the right people at the right place at the right time in your life. Just a small story there. Let me talk a little bit about Vanessa. You guys have heard, I think there's a lot of things I wanted to say, some of her qualities. You guys have heard all of that. It's all true. I was privileged. I was very, very privileged to just be a part of her story. She was a beautiful person, inside out, as you guys said. I loved her deeply. Cared for her deeply. I'm going to just tell a story. If any of you know the story, I'm going to call this. A little bit. It's just called "Are You Crazy?" Okay, and you'll understand a little bit why I say that. The story picks up when she was in Guyana, working at Hand in Hand, and I was at a very terrible place in my life. I was 27. I was dating a girl at the time. It was a bad relationship. We broke up the day before. I went to Guyana. My cousin, Jan, somewhere here, she called. I never went back to Guyana since I came in 75, and she said, hey, Arnold, I'm going to Guyana. Would you like to come? Would you and Ron like to come? I said, wow, that's awesome. I'd love to. So we jumped at the opportunity, and we went back. And as I said, I was at the time dating a girl. We broke up the day before I went to Guyana. And I was confident that was it. And last thing on my mind was another woman or dating or any of that. as a matter of fact, I was writing in my journal as I was going there. My life was in a dark place. And I wanted to quit my job, go live a crazy life. I get to Guyana, and 3 days into the trip, my other cousin who worked where Vanessa worked, she says, "Hey Arnold, why don't you come to town?" This was in Georgetown. "Why don't you come to town and we will go for lunch with my uncle?" And Ron and I went, and we sat at the front of Hand in Hand, and I think there's some Hand in Hand folks here. As you know, it's a big open concept area you can see from here to the back. You know, literally, it's probably from here to the back of this sanctuary here. And it's just 3 days into the trip. And I'm sitting there with my brother at the front, and this incredible feeling comes over me. And I'm looking at the back. I see this person. I can't even see her face. People think I picked Vanessa because she was beautiful and all this. I didn't even see her face. I didn't even know what she looked like. I just saw her hair, an outline. And this feeling just came over me. And this is not how it happens for most people, so please bear with me. And this incredible feeling came over me, and the feeling was, I'm going to marry that girl someday. And I said, what? In my mind, what? My brother's there. I elbowed him. Him and I were talking about the story last night. I elbowed him. I said, hey, Ron, you see that girl over there? He says, oh, that one. I said, no, that one. I said, I think I'm going to marry that girl. I knew nothing about this girl. I knew nothing about. And then he said, really? And I think that's what he said. That's how I remembered. He said, he goes, really? I said, yeah. And then this feeling left. My cousin comes from the other side of Hand in Hand, walks down past Vanessa's desk, comes to the front. I said, hey, Lena, who's that girl over there? She said, that girl? I said, no, the other girl. She says, oh, that's Vanessa. I said, okay. That was it. Didn't even think about it anymore. Then she says, why don't I introduce you to some of my friends? These are friends on the sort of at the other side of the room. Lena, where are you? Okay. So she comes to the front, grabs me, and starts walking by. She walks past Vanessa's desk. I didn't even look at Vanessa. I just kept going, and Lena stops dead in her tracks, grabs my hand, and I'm like, I said, what are you doing? She says, let me introduce you to Vanessa. I'm like, no, it's not me. And anyhow, she proceeded to drag me over to Vanessa's desk and introduced me to Vanessa. And she said, hi, how are you? I said, hi, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. We finished that conversation, didn't think much of it, just I was embarrassed more than anything, to be honest. And we went over to the other corner and said hello to her friends. And as I'm walking back past Vanessa's desk, coming back to the front after my little visit with her, I stopped dead in my tracks. I don't know why, and I turned around. And I went straight to Vanessa's desk. And I said, hey, never done this before in my life, you know. Said, we're going out for lunch with Lena and my uncle. Would you like to come? And she was shy, and I didn't think she would say yes, to be honest. And she said yes, she'll come. So anyhow, we went out for lunch, and I just remember having such a great conversation with her. She was just this pure, innocent, wonderful light. I can't describe it. It just drew me in, and I knew right then. Story, I come back home. You'll understand what I meant by this, but I came back home, and him and I were roommates at the time. We shared a condo, and I said, Dennis, he asked, how was your trip? I was like, I think I met the one. He goes, what do you mean? I told him the story. I told him everything. He goes, Arnold, are you crazy? Like any good friend would, right? It was such and he had the right question. That was a good question to ask. But I knew. And long story short, I went back in April of that year, September of that year. We spent a lot of time writing phone calls. I could have flew every month if I wanted to with the amount of money I spent on phone calls. And then back in, when I went, I think September, we knew that I wanted to get her engaged. And at that time, you could apply for her as a fiance, which I did. And once I went down in December and gave her the ring and proposed to her, I went to see her mom and T-Boy and Uncle Joe. Just told them that my intentions, and they gave me the blessing, of course. And then then I think she got through in February 28th, 1995. And she came up. We had 3 months to get married. We didn't know when it was all going to happen. We planned a crazy wedding. Where's Mac? Thank you, Mac, for all your support during that day. And we got married. We shared the first 20 years were a combination of things. There were difficult times in our first early years of marriage. Difficult, not from, we were adjusting to each other, yes. They were tough because we bought a house at the same time, and we thought, okay, instead of renting, let's just take the plunge and make it work. And didn't have much, and so those were tough years a little bit, but I was working hard, and, long hours, traveling. And one thing about Vanessa is that, one thing I really appreciated is she never complained with me being gone so often. I'd be gone, 3, 4, 5 days of the week, come home for the weekend, and back out on the road again. She never complained about it. She was always content. And I missed her dearly. I actually hated being on the road just because she was home. And I just rushed home to get home to her. We had little things, sometimes I bring, you get these shampoos that are really unique at these hotels, and I'd smell it, and I'm like, oh, she would love this, so I'll bring home a little shampoo, and she'd be like ecstatic to get this little shampoo. Of course, shampoos became Belgian chocolates when I flew to Belgium, and but I love the fact that she could be by herself. She was content. She was happy. She never made a big fuss about these things. It meant a lot to our relationship that she could deal with things that way. The first 20 years was full with a lot of fun. We traveled a lot. We were fortunate enough to, do a lot of traveling over those years. And we were blessed. We invested a lot into, Vanessa had a passion for missions and missionaries, and so did I. We've, been involved in that work for many, many years and support many missionaries over the years, and we were just grateful for that. One thing she taught me was the first few years when we got married, I think it was the third year, I had a credit card when I was 16 years old, and I never carried a debt. I was always fairly good with money and, saved enough and all those things. But it was tough the first 3 years. We might sound like a big thing now, but I had about $3,000 on a credit card, and I was panicking. Don, I think you know this story. I was panicking, like, wow, I've never had debt. What is this all about? And I said, I'm counting every penny, and making sure everything lines up. And Vanessa stopped and she said, listen, why don't we tithe? She says, I have like an experience about this. I said, yeah. I said, how's that going to work? I said, are you crazy? Does that work? I said, but I knew that it was the right thing to do. And we sacrificed more and started tithing, giving away our money. And from that day, you know, I always remember this. I was praying to God. He says, I was praying about this whole situation financially, and he says, I remember this, he said, why are you counting pennies when I have dollars? You know, and from that day to this day, I've never balanced my checkbook. And I don't say that as anything else. I want to talk about the faithfulness of God in our lives. When I was back in Guyana and when I met Vanessa, in that dark place in my life, I remember being at the back of my grandmother's house. She was there for a visit, and I just I told her my life. I told her how I was. I asked her to pray for me. She prayed for me. And I just remember like the light bulb went on in my head, and from that moment I knew I wanted to live a different life. And she was part of that. She was the one that prayed for me. I took my marriage very seriously. I always told her my marriage was first a commitment to God and then to you. And the reason I say that is if I'm committed to God, it's very difficult to, yes, are we weak? Do we make mistakes? Of course we do. But my commitment was to God and to her. And I think that was the foundation of our relationship, was that we always, remembered that. We always prayed together about if we were struggling or things weren't going right. We always put God first. We always took that time when things were getting so ahead of us to pause and think. I'm going to fast forward a little bit here just because of time, but the journey took a turn with her cancer diagnosis. I remember back in 2013, 2014, just having a sense that we were going to go through a very difficult season in her life. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was going to be challenging, and I think God was preparing me, preparing her. And in 2015, when we started being signs of cancer, and I knew then. 2016, she was fully diagnosed, and the journey started there. This journey was always a journey with God and God's faithfulness. I remember praying the very first time we talked about, how is this going to work? Does God heal? Does He? Of course He does. We knew that. But we knew that He may not heal. And we knew that He would have to be the one that carried us through this journey. And I'm confident, and I can tell you stories, my friends. He did. And that has always been what we clung to as a couple. Things were tough. Cancer is not an easy thing. Some of you are going through it. I have friends here, and it hurts. Really, really hurts. It robs you of things. But it is also a great teacher if we allow it to teach us. And it's only with God you can actually see that as you go through this journey. I want to talk a little bit about the final days. The last year or 2 years when she was re-diagnosed and she had surgery in her hips and 11, 12 different treatments over the last 2 years, roller coaster ride, treatments, symptoms, and It was difficult. And caring for her, I was fortunate to be able to be at home and work and just be with her and care for her. But friends, it was tough the last few months, especially the last 2 weeks. I got to a place where, we talked about palliative care, we talked about hospice, what that would look like once I could not physically, or she could not physically take care of herself. We would move into that. It was getting to that point where, she went in 2 weeks before, 2 Fridays before, she went in for what they call an abdominal tap. And her liver is failing, her kidneys are failing, so she's retaining water in her abdomen. She went, the Friday we went in for a tap to remove 5 liters of fluid from her. And by the Monday, her stomach, her abdomen was filled up again. She hung on until the very next Friday, and I was feeling the weight of all of this. She was feeling it. She made the comment several times, she's ready to go, she wanted to die. And I remember the Friday, the second time we went in, that same, from Monday to the Friday. The Friday, it was the 10th of January. And I went in and was conflicted. I was really thinking about this God I serve. His mercy and His grace, where is it? I didn't want to see her suffer anymore. She went into the room to start the tap. I went out to the corridor. There's a little corridor there. I sat down and I started praying. I said, God, where are you? I know you're here. We've believed, we've trusted. One thing Vanessa and I always talked about and prayed about was we didn't want her to suffer deeply. She suffered, but towards the end of cancer stages, there's an incredible amount of potential suffering. We didn't want that. So I was crying out to God. I said, God, where's your mercy? Where's your grace? Telling God that this is what I want. I just don't want to see her suffer anymore. Telling Him how it should go, how this should go. Please, God. And I paused and I said, you know what? I said, God, this is what I want. And this is going to sound a little crazy, my friends. I said, God, this is what I want. But if you want her to suffer for another month, you better give me the strength. I said, not my will, but your will be done, God. And I was crying, devastated. There's a God who hears, not even a minute into that finished praying, about maybe 30 seconds, I get a text from my friend Savag. Savag, where are you? You're around here somewhere. Anyhow, he texted me. I responded for the first time. He texted me. We don't really text that often, but he sent me a Happy New Year, hope things are well. And it was the 10th that I responded, and I finally got to him. I think it was 3 o'clock that day. I sent him a text, and I just said, hey, listen, things aren't good. We may be down to the wire for I don't know when, and immediately after praying, 30 seconds in, I received a text from him. He says, Arnold, I don't know what you're going through. He says, I'm thinking about you. We're here for you. And then then he sends me this verse, and the verse is really just simple, be still and know I'm God. And right away I knew that God heard my prayers. He put that right at the very minute of my darkest time with that cancer treatment. And it reassured me. Right away I knew, yes, why am I worried? Why am we went through Saturday, we went through Sundays, and it was a tough day. We had the nurse back in, and the plan was for her stomach was starting to fill up again. So we were like, okay, maybe there needs to be a permanent solution that we could just to bring her some comfort and relief in the last, So the plan was to go in on Monday to do another, put in a permanent solution. And, woke up in the morning and said, honey, are you still able to go? By this time she was very weak. She's lost a lot of weight. I said, honey, are you able to go? And she said, no, I just want to stay home. I said, okay, no problem. I said, you won't be able to have a permanent solution put in, but if you don't want to go, think about it. And she was very weak. I didn't want to take her because I wasn't sure how she was going to fare. But she said, okay. She changed her mind and she said, okay, I'll go. And long story short, we called the ambulance, went to the hospital, and the doctors assessed her, basically said, we didn't realize she was so bad. Told me that she may not make it through the night. I said, okay. I said, I kind of figured, I kind of knew. All through this, friends, Vanessa never complained, never once did she ever complain about her sickness to me. I knew things were going. And the other thing we prayed about was that God would just take her peacefully. And I can tell you that when she passed, it was just her and I looking at each other, me telling her I love her, she telling me she loves me. And she passed. Took a few breaths, slowly got weaker, and she went. I tell you that story about me being in the hallway because it's just a reminder how faithful God is and how He sees everything. Neil, are you still here? So Neil, I called Neil and I told him, didn't tell him the story or anything, and he says, we cried and gave her condolences. And the next day he sends me a text and says, hey Arnold, I'm going to put a little blurb there about Vanessa just to honor her on the air, and I got a song I'll dedicate to her. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. At that time, people were coming over to my place. I missed it, so I asked him to send the recording. I just want to close with this. Neil sent me the song he sent me the lyrics to the song. It's called Home Free. And the song really is about us going home to be with the Lord when we die. And I never heard the song before. I played it, and I'm not going to read the whole song to you. I'm going to read to you just how God actually always is there and carries us if we allow Him to. If we allow His will to be done. He doesn't, as Neil's saying, He's not angry with us. He actually cares for us, but we need to actually allow Him to work. Man, did I want my wife to be healed, of course. I've been healed in the past. I know what it's like, but I know God doesn't always heal. And it's frustrating sometimes as human beings. We look at that. But God is always there. I can tell you that. And to sort of just, he sends me the words to this song, and it goes as simple as this. I'll just read the last little bit. It says, pain has little mercy, and suffering is no respecter of age, of race or position. I know every prayer gets answered, but the hardest one to pray is slow to come. O Lord, not mine, but thy will be done. And for me, that just put in a period at the end of, everything that we went through. God saw me in the corridor. God saw me. Saw how I was praying for my wife. And then Neil sends me the song with the same words, And I think God sees you and sees us. As I said before, I loved my wife dearly. I will miss her dearly. Kind of joke a little bit, she'd say, "Oh, Arnold, you'll find somebody." Yeah, I said, "Are you kidding me? I said to her, "Are you crazy?" Once is enough. I think, I said, no, truthfully, I just want to do what God wants me to do at the end of it. If it's in business, God forbid. If it's in overseas somewhere doing something exciting, great. If it's, we always joked a little bit about what, she always said I wanted to be a fly on the wall at her funeral. I think she's here looking down. But thank you. I just want to, again, just express my deepest gratitude to people who have come and for your love and support and the hundreds of messages and opening up your homes. I have not slept by myself for the last couple of weeks because I've always had company. Somebody wants to stay in the house. And it's great. It's great to have that kind of support. I so appreciate you. Thank you so much for your patience and just listening to us. I